Latest transfer news roundup, and today we are starting with Liverpool. As are they going to go all in for Bradley Barcola? So it's been revealed that Diomande, who's Liverpool's long-term target for pretty much the whole second half of the season, has rejected them to join PSG. So he's pretty much told Liverpool that, PSG have come in for him and he just wants that move. So from Liverpool's point of view, it looks like they're going to pull out of that deal. We know they had a bid of around 100 million euros rejected from RB Leipzig, and they were preparing another deal. But with the news that PSG have opened talks with Diomande and he's agreed personal terms, it now looks like Liverpool will be pulling out of that deal for Diomande, which is obviously a massive blow for Liverpool because he's been a long-term target for them. He's pretty much been their number one target this summer. And for PSG just to come in and just sort of really take him off them, it's a big blow for them. But we do know Liverpool were also looking to sign Bradley Barcola alongside Diomande. So it wasn't one or the other. It was very much a case of Liverpool wanting both of those two, probably to play Diomande on the right and Barcola on the left. But with the news that Diomande is now looking like he's going to join PSG, Liverpool are now set to go all in for Bradley Barcola. The big issue they face there is that PSG have basically trapped Liverpool now because they've stole the man they wanted in Diomande, and they don't really want to sell Barcola. So there's actually talk that they're offering Barcola a new contract. Those contract talks are currently stalling, so it's reported that Barcola is keen to actually explore a move to the Premier League, and that is something he has been thinking about. So he's open to a move, but PSG aren't very keen to sell him. They see Barcola as an important player. They obviously see the potential he's got as well. And it's reported they're looking for around 116 million or 120 million to sell him. So they've very much put his price tag up, which, they can do that now. Now they know they've got Liverpool in a bit of a trap. So they've put his price tag up a lot. So in order for Liverpool to do a deal with Barcola, they're probably looking to spend over £100 million on him. Liverpool obviously have got the money. We've seen them do it with Isak last season. We've seen them do it with Wirtz. I don't know if it's going to be something Liverpool will want to fully commit to, but we do know their number one target now is pretty much Bradley Barcola, but it very much relies on PSG. There is other targets Liverpool have been looking at as well, so another name who's come through recently is Said Al-Mala, who nearly joined Brentford, but that deal broke down basically because Brentford didn't want to sign his brother, which was part of the deal. Brentford weren't keen on that, so that deal broke down. They've also been linked to Matias Fernandes-Pardo, who's a name I've said quite a lot on these updates. He's at Lille at the minute and currently with Belgium at the World Cup. He's another player Liverpool have been looking at. And then there's also options like Yankuba Minter, again, who's been very much a long-term target at Liverpool. He actually played under Arne Slot, and there was a lot of talk that was an Arne Slot signing. But it is reported Liverpool actually, they wanted them themselves, and it wasn't just a Slot signing. So Yankuba Minter is another player to look out for. And of course, there's Jared Bowen as well. So I think it's very likely if Liverpool go all out for Bradley Barcola that they will sign another winger alongside him, maybe someone like Bowen, someone like Minter, who's maybe slightly cheaper. But I think you can expect Liverpool to try and go all out for Bradley Barcola now, but PSG are going to make it very, very hard for them. Granit Xhaka is trying to push through a move to Chelsea. So the big news over the weekend, which kind of came out of nowhere really, was that Chelsea have agreed personal terms with Granit Xhaka, and they had an £8 million bid rejected by Sunderland. So the reports are that Xhaka is very keen on the move. He wants to work with Xabi Alonso again. That was the man he worked with at Bayer Leverkusen and was a massive part of Xabi Alonso's team there. He's also very keen to move back to London, reportedly. Obviously, he played there with Arsenal. So Xhaka's very keen on the move. Sunderland, not so keen. So I think from Sunderland's point of view, I think they'd find it very hard to replace Xhaka, mainly from a leadership point of view. He's obviously 34 years old, which is quite a big factor when you're talking about moves nowadays, which is why £8 million sounds quite cheap for a player as good as Granit Xhaka, but when you weigh it up and say, he's 34 years old, it kind of makes sense. But Sunderland reportedly want around 30 million for him, which is obviously well off from what Chelsea have put in. So Sunderland have rejected the bid, basically said he's not for sale. But this move's going to very much depend on Xhaka and if he wants to force it. I could see a situation where Granit Xhaka does try to force a move, to be totally honest. And I could see it becoming quite, just not good really for Sunderland, not good for the dressing room. We've seen it a lot recently where players force moves and the clubs can't really do much about it. I could honestly see this situation happening again with Granit Xhaka. I could see Sunderland and Chelsea probably settling around the mark of around 15 million and that deal being done. But at the minute, Sunderland are holding firm. Xhaka wants to move. He's obviously currently in the World Cup at the moment as well. Chelsea want to move. Xabi Alonso wants to move. Talks are currently ongoing, so this is definitely one to keep an eye on. And another club who's having issues with their midfielders in the northeast is Newcastle. So we know that Sandro Tonali is pretty much on his way. It looks like he's very close to joining Spurs, which again is kind of an interesting move. You'd probably say it's kind of a, sideways step, I'd say, but Tonali looks set to be on his way to Spurs for a figure around £80 million. I think we always knew Tonali was on his way, but obviously we now know that Arsenal are pushing to sign Bruno Guimarães as well. So that one would be a massive, massive blow to Newcastle, obviously. At the start of the summer, all the talk was Newcastle would sell one or the other. So it'd either be Bruno Guimarães or it'd either be Sandro Tonali that leaves. Not both of them. Which Newcastle's stance is still that. They say Bruno Guimarães is not for sale. He's pretty much the captain now. He, massive part of the squad. Very hard to replace. They say he's not for sale. But the issue they have, again, is kind of similar to the Xhaka situation, is that Bruno Guimarães is very keen to join Arsenal. Premier League champions have come in for him, probably offering him a starting spot in the team. He's keen for the move, and now it will pretty much depend on what he decides to do, really. So we know that Newcastle have rejected a verbal offer from Arsenal worth around £55 million. It's reported Arsenal are readying a second bid, possibly worth around £65 million. We do expect Newcastle to reject it again. But the issue they've got is if Bruno Guimarães goes, I want to leave, they're going to have the same situation they had last season with Isak, where they said he wasn't for sale. Isak just refused to turn up to training, refused to play, and they had to force through a move. I don't know if that'll happen with Bruno Guimarães. I don't know if he's got that in his character, but I can see him trying to push for a move to Arsenal, which again really affects the dressing room. It's not great in terms of preparation for the season when you've got a massive player like Bruno Guimarães wanting to leave the club. It's not good. It's not a good situation at all. Newcastle had it all last season. It massively affected their transfer window, the whole Isak saga. They ended up panic buying a few players, as we know, and the last thing they want is for that to happen again. But it does look like it's heading that way. We've seen the issue of Newcastle not getting European football. They've already lost Anthony Gordon. They're losing Sandro Tonali, and now they could be losing Bruno Guimarães. So not great from a Newcastle point of view. It puts them in a big situation now where they're going to have to basically either hold their ground and say, Bruno, you're not leaving. That's it. That's final. Or they're going to have to bow into the pressure. But we do know Arsenal are trying to push that move. We also know Newcastle are looking at midfielders. Now, this isn't necessarily related to Bruno Guimarães. I think this is more related to Sandro Tonali. But we do know they hold a lot of interest in Swiss midfielder Johan Manzambi, who's currently at Freiburg. He's having a very good season he's having a very good World Cup, I should say, for Switzerland. He's actually quite a defensive midfielder, but he's been scoring a lot of goals for Switzerland and been playing further up the field. So he's a player Newcastle really like. It's reported he's going to be worth around £45 million, which is probably within Newcastle's price. Again, they do face quite a lot of competition for him, though. Another player they've been showing a lot of interest in as well, who's also having was Felix Nemetcha, a German midfielder who currently plays for Borussia Dortmund. Newcastle showing a lot of interest in him. The problem is it looks like they're going to be priced out of that deal because Dortmund reportedly want around 80 to 100 million for him, and it's reported Nemetcha would rather join Man United or Chelsea over Newcastle, so he definitely hasn't given them his priority either. So I think from Newcastle's point of view, they're probably looking at that deal as a bit like, don't know about that one now. So Lamine Camara is another one as well from Monaco. So I think Newcastle find themselves in a situation now where they could have to replace two very big prominent players in midfield. They're also still looking to replace Anthony Gordon as well. As we know, they tried to sign Victor Munoz. He basically turned them down last minute to join Liverpool. So it's looking like it's going to be another tough transfer window for Newcastle. A team who's having a very good transfer window at the moment, though, is Brighton. They've already completed a few signings. Obviously, they've signed the winger Johanna. So, you know, they're looking to push for a few more. We know they're still working on a deal for Luka Vuskovic as well. But they look like they're going to be set to sign possibly another 2 centre-backs as well. So they've agreed a £20 million deal for Leeds centre-back Pascal Struijk. So that one, again, kind of came out of nowhere. There was a lot of talk about Struijk looking to leave Leeds at the end of the season. Some of this talk was, you know, around agent talk, saying maybe he was looking for a new contract and just, you know, testing the waters. But it does look like he's set to leave Leeds, and it looks like his destination is Brighton. It's reported that deal is worth around 15 million straight up, and then £5 million in bonuses, which takes it to 20 odd million. So that's one centre-back in there for Brighton. And then they've also had a £30 million bid, or they've put in a £30 million bid for Atalanta centre-back Honest Hanor, who's a young centre-back who's had a lot of clubs looking at him. They're in talks with him as well. So again, that could be another centre-back in for Brighton. So yeah, Brighton looking busy, looking very busy. But it'll be interesting to see what Leeds do in terms of replacements for Struijk, because he was an important player last season. But Brighton having a very good window so far. And then some other news. We know that Hayden Hackney, so Everton have finally agreed a £25 million deal for Hayden Hackney. So that one looks to be done. Hull City looks set to be signing Jack Butland as part of a swap deal, which would see Ivor Pandor join Rangers for around £6 million. So Jack Butland coming back to the Premier League is quite an interesting one. Chelsea still remain in talks with Maxence Lacroix, so that is a deal they're looking to push through. And they're also in talks with Rayo Vallecano left back Pep Chavaria, 28-year-old sort of wing back. So yeah, that'll be quite an interesting signing that's kind of come out of nowhere, but Chelsea are in talks with him. And there's also talks that Spurs have made an inquiry about Como midfielder Martin Baturina, who's the Croatian midfielder who's currently having a good World Cup. It's reported Como looking for around 80 odd million for him, though. He only signed last summer, so they probably can demand that, but Spurs are said to be very interested in him, so that's one to keep an eye on as well. But that is all for today's transfer news roundup. Sorry about my voice. I basically lost my voice over the weekend, and I think I've got like hay fever and stuff, so it'll be back soon. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, then please like and also subscribe, because it really helps me out. And I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.